Hey folks, this is a quick tutorial video about how to fix a fan in a laptop. Some fans in the laptops, due to their smaller size, will use a sleeve bearing fan instead of a ball bearing fan. And over time, the lubrication in these fans can go out. In addition to that, um, any kind of dust or debris that gets in there can cause the fan assembly not to sit completely down upon the or down into the bearing pocket there, and it causes it to wobble around, and it makes this very characteristic buzzing sound when the fan's trying to run, and eventually gets to the point where the fan slows down and stops cooling the unit effectively. Um, I've got a Lenovo first generation Helix. This laptop has a fan on the heatsink, but it also has one in the keyboard, so it's not a complete loss if this fan dies, but it still gets pretty warm, so it needs to be addressed. For this particular laptop, I'll go over what I did, and hopefully, if anyone else has a first-gen Helix, they can try this. Otherwise, you might have a laptop that has a similar type of build that you can apply this method to. What I've known from past experience working with PC hardware is that the sleeve bearing fans, when they make that noise, it doesn't necessarily mean that the fan's completely toast and needs to be replaced. It really means that you need to get in there, clean it out, and replace the lubrication. I usually find that using a heavy grease will work best because the greases won't typically evaporate over time. They do have higher viscosity, which means the motor has to work a little bit more to bring the fan up to speed, but I've never really seen it where it's slowed the fan down. This fan, for instance, typically runs about 5,600 RPM, and that's what I see even after packing this with grease, so there's not really any fall off there. Now, on the Helix, what you're going to have is, once you get to the heatsink, there's 4 screws really that just hold the heatsink down, and that's it. Once you get that off, and you flip the unit over, you've got the fan, which is really just this aluminum colored piece here. It's still firmly attached to the copper, though. You're going to have to deal with that. There's also a motherboard connector here for the fan that needs to be freed from the motherboard. But once you've got that done, you can remove the heatsink and fan as one part. Once that's done, you've got a piece of foil tape here that's holding the fan unit to the heatsink. This is foil so that it makes a good thermal contact, because there's a thermocouple here that's used or it's actually probably just a thermistor, but it's just used for a temperature sensor. So you're going to want to peel up that tape somehow. Probably just get a X-Acto under there and carefully lift it. Then there's also going to be a series of tabs. There's one coming up through this hole here. They're normally bent over, but I've already lifted them up out of the way. There's one there, one here, and one here. So once you lift those 3 up, just bend them back so that it frees up this top plate. There's also a piece of tape right here. You can see it's just a piece of adhesive tape that you can peel out of the way. Once that's done, the fan unit will just pop right off of the heatsink. And I'm trying to do this with one hand. I apologize. I'm not using my camera. I'm just using my phone to make a video because someone on Reddit ran into a similar problem, and I'm not sure I can explain it very well over text. So once you've got this off, you're going to see the fan blade here. And this fan blade is not held on with any kind of pin or anything like that. It's just held in place by magnetic force. So it doesn't even take hardly any effort at all. You can just lift this right off. There's a shaft there. That's just the sleeve bearing shaft. And then there's a pocket there. And if you look, you'll notice that there's some red gunk in here. Now that red gunk is the grease that I've already packed this fan with. This is a replacement fan that I ordered. I ordered the fan and heatsink to replace the buzzing one that was in my Lenovo. That started buzzing about probably 2-3 weeks after I bought it used. So I just got a new unit, figuring that the fan couldn't be detached from the heatsink. Popped the new one in, ran fine for about a week, and then it just started buzzing again. So I went ahead and took the fan apart, thinking it was a hydrodynamic bearing per some of the information I read, and then I found out it was just a sleeve bearing. So once I got in here, I realized that with it being a sleeve bearing, it's a pretty simple fix. All you got to do is just clean out all the gunk. Usually what I'll do is I'll take a light oil of some sort and apply that to a twisted up piece of tissue paper, and just get it down into this hole and just twist it out and repeat the process until it comes out clean. Once that bearing journal here is cleaned out, you're going to want to turn your attention to the shaft that's on this fan right here. Just take a cotton swab, go around it a few times, possibly again with some light oil, and just clean it until you stop getting debris off of it. There's a lot of times dust, metal particles. I don't know. It's just a really fine, dry particulate substance that's usually on here, and you just want to get that off. So once you get it down to where it's clean, you're also going to want to go around the periphery here, because this is a magnet, and sometimes there's dust and other things that will build up on here, and it'll get pretty nasty. So just go ahead and gently clean that as well. Once that's done, you're going to want to apply some kind of grease. Now you can either try to pack the grease into here, which is kind of a pain in the butt unless you have something like a hypodermic needle that you can squeeze it down in there. Alternatively, you can just run around the periphery of the shaft here with the grease and coat it, and then put it into the pocket here, and it'll work for you. As for what kind of grease you use, I don't think it really matters. I just have this stuff on hand. It's the Staplex from Stay Lube. They don't pay me for this. It's just I have this stuff from other projects I've worked on. It's just a petroleum lithium compound. It smells like death. I mean, it's just this really thick red crap, and it's nasty. It smells like, gear oil. If anyone works on transmissions, you know what that nasty smell is. So once you've gotten a good coating on there, just go ahead and put the motor back on the shaft. Again, it doesn't click or anything. It just fits on, and the magnetic force will hold it in place. Make sure it does spin a little bit freely. Just give it a quick move here with your fingers. Once that's in place, just reverse the whole process. Put this back in place, line up everything, fold the tabs over, put the aluminum tape back on here, and reattach that to your board, and it should run just fine. In my Lenovo ThinkPad, I beat the hell out of that unit. I run Gentoo Linux on it, and it's done many compilation cycles where it's run full tilt on the fan for hours on end, and it's gone strong for several months without any problem. So hopefully this will help out anyone that's having problems. If you've got a similar type of issue and your fan's buzzing, you might find that it's a sleeve bearing fan, and you can replicate this. If you find out that it does help you out, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. If you've got any suggestions or any hate you want to spread in the comments, feel free to do that as well. I do take constructive criticism quite well, but I think this is a pretty straightforward fix. I don't mean to be bashing on Lenovo. I really like my Helix, even though I bought it used. It's a good unit, but like I said, these smaller fans, it's kind of hard to find a supplier sometimes that makes a good ball bearing fan. So sometimes they just go with sleeve bearing fans, and it's not usually the best in this case, because in the case of the Helix, it's usually sitting in this orientation. It's attached to the fans in the screen part. It's sort of a tablet hybrid. So sleeve bearing fans, it's generally considered a no-no where you mount them anywhere but flat like this, because the lubrication will tend to make its way out of the fan over time. So it's a problem I suspect some people are going to have, but give that a shot. Try relubing your fan if you feel confident going in there and doing work, and try that out before you buy a replacement fan and have to wait for it to ship to you. Anyways, thanks for watching.